Imagine you vividly remember an event that never happened. Not a vague recollection, but a detailed memory. For instance, you might recall Nelson Mandela dying in prison in the 1980s, complete with memories of news reports and the mourning of world leaders. Now, imagine millions of others share this exact memory of a non-existent past. In our documented history, he was released in 1990, became president of South Africa, and died a free man in 2013. This gap between a vivid collective memory and historical fact is a phenomenon that questions the very foundation of our shared reality. The phenomenon was given a name in 2010 when paranormal researcher Fiona Broome discovered at a convention that a vast number of people shared her false memory of Mandela's death. She created a website to collect similar stories and dubbed the phenomenon the Mandela Effect. Her site became a digital campfire of sorts, where people gathered to share fragments of a common, yet non-existent past. The Mandela Effect permeates popular culture. Millions would swear that the children's books were called the Berenstain Bears, with an E. They remember the Monopoly mascot, officially named Rich Uncle Pennybags, wearing a monocle. They recall Darth Vader saying, "Luke, I am your father." Not the actual line, "No, I am your father." These details may seem minor, but their widespread and identical nature transforms them from simple mistakes into a global phenomenon. From a scientific perspective, the root of this phenomenon lies not in glitches in reality, but in the architecture of our memory. The brain isn't a hard drive with files. It's more like a living storyteller that reassembles a story each time it's told. When we recall something, we don't play back a recording. Instead, we reconstruct the event from fragments, filling in missing details for logical coherence. This creative process is known as confabulation. Not a lie, but the brain's natural tendency to create a complete narrative of the past. Even our most vivid flashbulb memories of tragic events become distorted and embellished over time. Psychological experiments demonstrate just how malleable this internal storyteller is. In the 1990s, psychologist Elizabeth Loftus managed to convince a quarter of her study participants that they had been lost in a shopping mall as children, an event that never occurred. When we hear from others or read online about another example of the Mandela Effect, our brain can adopt this information as its own memory. The internet acts as a giant echo chamber where a collective error is repeated until it begins to feel like an undeniable truth. Furthermore, our brains think in patterns. The image of a wealthy early 20th century capitalist is strongly associated in our culture with a top hat and a monocle. The Monopoly character fits this archetype perfectly, and the brain uses a kind of mental autocomplete. It automatically adds the monocle, perhaps borrowing it from other cultural icons like Mr. Peanut. This is a cognitive shortcut, not a glitch in reality. Sometimes, we simply forget the source of our information. You might have seen a parody where the character had a monocle or heard a joke about it. Over time, the source is forgotten, but the image remains, solidifying into a personal memory. A classic example of this phenomenon, cryptomnesia, is the court case against George Harrison. His song My Sweet Lord subconsciously borrowed its melody from a 1960s hit. Harrison didn't steal the melody. His brain simply forgot its origin. For most scientists, the Mandela Effect is not a puzzle of physics, but a striking demonstration of the predictable imperfections of human memory, amplified by modern technology. Guided by Occam's razor, the principle that the simplest explanation is usually the correct one, science considers the matter closed. But this is precisely where it gets interesting. What if this razor is too dull to cut through the fabric of such a complex and specific phenomenon? The primary counterargument is both simple and compelling. Why do millions of people separated by oceans and cultures make not just a general error, but the exact same specific error? Why is the bear's family name remembered specifically as Berenstain and not, say, Berenstein or Berenstain? Why did the Monopoly man acquire a monocle and not a pipe or sideburns? Psychological theories explain well why we might err in principle, but they struggle to account for the striking uniformity of the collective mistake. This conviction in their own memories drives people to search for what they call residue, physical evidence from a past, altered reality. They act as digital archaeologists, scouring old family archives and the depths of the internet for photos, VHS tapes, or newspaper clippings where the world is still as they remember it. While most of these finds turn out to be fakes or the result of poor image quality, the global search itself is telling. It is a refusal to accept that memory can lie so massively and so uniformly. Some examples of the Mandela effect extend beyond pop culture to touch on objective, verifiable facts, such as geography, one of the most unsettling cases. Thousands of people distinctly remember a different world map. For them, South America was located almost directly below North America, not shifted far to the east as it is today. Others are certain that New Zealand was positioned differently relative to Australia. These geographical memories are much harder to dismiss as cultural templates or inattention. They feel like memories of another world. Ultimately, for many, this is not just a debate about details. It is a deep, intuitive feeling that something is wrong. A sense of waking up in a world that is almost identical to your own, but with small, subtle shifts. It is like the uncanny valley effect, applied not to a robot, but to all of surrounding reality. The world feels 99% right, but the remaining 1% triggers an irrational unease. This is the emotional core of the phenomenon, compelling people to trust their own memory, however illogical it may seem, over official records. This unease pushes people to seek explanations beyond psychology. And here, a theory that is both elegant and fantastic enters the stage: quantum physics. In 1957, physicist Hugh Everett, working on his doctoral dissertation at Princeton, proposed the many worlds interpretation. According to this theory, every quantum event with multiple possible outcomes does not choose one, but realizes all of them simultaneously, causing the universe to branch. An infinite number of parallel worlds is created. In one, Mandela died in prison. In another, he became president. In one world, the bear's name is spelled Berenstein. In another, Berenstain. What if our consciousness is not permanently tethered to one of these timelines? Proponents of this idea suggest that consciousness can slide between adjacent, nearly identical universes. Imagine a radio tuned to the frequency of our reality. Sometimes, perhaps during sleep or under intense stress, the tuning knob shifts, and for a moment we pick up a signal from a neighboring station. The news there is almost the same, but with slight differences. We bring memories from the old reality with us, which are considered false in the new one. In this worldview, the Mandela effect is not a memory failure, but a kind of baggage from another, abandoned world. In online communities, there is even a suspected culprit for these shifts: the Large Hadron Collider at CERN. The theory posits that particle collisions at colossal energies could create microscopic tears in the fabric of space-time, causing parallel realities to merge or interact. This idea has become so popular that the official CERN website has a section where scientists explicitly deny that their experiments can alter the past. The very existence of such a disclaimer shows how deeply this thought has penetrated the collective consciousness. A related concept is known as quantum immortality. This is a hypothesis suggesting that consciousness can never experience its own end. At the moment of death, it simply shifts to a branch of the multiverse where the fatal event did not occur. If this is true, a person might make many such unconscious jumps over a long life, accumulating memories from different timelines that manifest as the Mandela effect. This theory elegantly explains why we don't see major historical paradoxes. The shifts occur between very close, almost identical universes. It's like changing lanes on a multi-lane highway. You can easily merge into an adjacent lane where cars are moving at nearly the same speed, but you can't instantly jump to a highway in another city. The differences are only in minor details. Global history remains the same, but it is these small shifts that are noticed by those who feel they have come from another, nearly identical world. But there is another version that goes even further. What if the fabric of reality itself isn't so real? What if our world is not the base universe, but an incredibly complex computer simulation? This idea, developed by philosopher Nick Bostrom, argues that we are statistically more likely to be living inside a simulation than in the real world. If so, our reality has source code, and any complex program has bugs or updates. In this model, the Mandela effect is not a memory glitch, but the result of changes made by the programmers. Imagine the developers of the universe released a patch, altering a single line of code responsible for a name. The surname Berenstein was corrected to Berenstain. Most characters in the simulation, that is us, accepted this change without question, but for some, the old data remained in the cache of their consciousness. The simulation theory offers an elegant explanation for why we almost never find physical proof of the old world. If an administrator changes a variable in the code, it changes everywhere, permanently. All books, films, and digital records are updated instantly. It's like trying to find an old version of a character in an online game after a mandatory update. The old files are simply overwritten, they no longer exist. The only place a trace might remain is in the analog neural network of our brain, which doesn't always sync perfectly with the reality server. In this context, other unexplained phenomena, like déjà vu, are not failures of our perception, but glitches in the program itself. Glitches in the matrix. Moments when the simulation loads data with a delay or repeats a short snippet of code. Science fiction author Philip K. Dick, obsessed with this idea, once said that déjà vu is a variable that has been changed and a patch has been applied to the matrix. The Mandela Effect is simply the largest and most collective of these glitches. But to understand why these ideas resonate so powerfully, we must look not at the hypothetical code of the universe, but at our own world. We live in a post-truth era, where any recording can be a deepfake and any fact can be alternative. In such an environment, trust in official sources, in documented history itself, evaporates. The Mandela Effect becomes an extreme form of skepticism. It is a quiet rebellion against an imposed objective reality. When not even the archives can be trusted, the only anchor left is one's own memory and those who remember the same thing. This is where an incredibly strong sense of community is born. Discovering that thousands of strangers share your strangest and most personal memory completely changes the picture. You are no longer a person with a bad memory, but a visitor from another timeline. Entire digital tribes emerge, like communities on Reddit, that act as support groups for these temporal immigrants. They are united not by common interests or beliefs, but by a shared past that they are told never existed. It is a way of finding your people in a world that has suddenly become alien. In a world where science has seemingly explained almost everything, the Mandela Effect brings back a sense of a hidden order. It is a modern myth that answers the eternal human need for meaning. The ancient Greeks looked to Mount Olympus and saw gods toying with their fates. Modern humans look to the Large Hadron Collider or cloud server farms and see new, invisible architects, scientists or programmers capable of changing the very fabric of reality. It is an attempt to make sense of a complex and unpredictable world by giving it a hidden, yet managed, script. We are left at a crossroads with two paths. The first is the scientific path. It states that our memory is an imperfect map of reality, full of distortions and simplifications. As the scholar Alfred Korzybski noted, the map is not the territory. In this model, the Mandela Effect simply proves how unreliable our internal cartographer is, and how often we trust our map more than the territory itself. The second path is metaphysical. It allows that our map, our memories, might be correct, but that the territory itself, reality, is changeable and unstable. The choice is between two scenarios. Either your GPS is broken, the view of science, or the city streets are genuinely rearranging themselves every night, the view of metaphysics. The Mandela Effect is that rare moment when we notice that the landscape of our shared past has changed while we weren't looking. And in the end, which is more unsettling? The thought that our minds are unreliable and capable of mass-producing illusions, or the thought that the very fabric of reality, our shared past, can be altered at any moment without our knowledge. This is a choice between living with an unreliable narrator in your own head and living in a story with an unreliable author who constantly rewrites the previous chapters. The answer to that question defines not how the world is structured, but how we choose to live in it.